Hopefully you're still, good, you're still there. Great.
Yeah, you have to agree to being recorded. When it kicks you out and start back again.
That's it. And hopefully you can see that sharing now.
Yeah.
Great, good. Right, I'll just give it a couple of minutes. I've had quite a few apologies for holidays. I've been trying to catch up. I was on holiday, which you'll see in a moment. It's part of my safety moment. And I've been trying to catch up on things. So there's a couple of things that I haven't put in this slides that I'll mention that I've just been seeing that's going on in the world, which might be of interest and use to everybody. I don't know if anyone's caught the consultations on degree apprenticeships that Skills England are doing.
Yeah, I've seen that going around.
So I managed to dial into a couple of those this week. Make sure I need to mention what was discussed on those. If you can, definitely though, dial into them. If anybody gets the chance. The one on Tuesday, I think it was, the first session, initially started off with, we're doing a consultation and you've got till the 24th of August to reply. So which wasn't really that long to try and stand up for the future of degree apprenticeships and the importance of what we want as employers. So yeah, we definitely need to voice our opinions and make sure they get heard. Right, I'll just give it another couple more minutes. Morning, Gareth. Thanks for dialing in. Hi, Winnie.
Morning.
Slightly unconventional this month, my health and safety moment, but it's tenuous. But hopefully, hopefully you still enjoy it. Hopefully it's worthwhile.
Winnie's just said she can't hear things, but I can hear things okay.
Oh,
sent a message through on the chat.
All right, thanks for spotting that. I'm rubbish at the chat. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite, I have to restart my Teams quite often now because when I dial in, I struggle with it. Or Aaron. So I don't know if that might be it. Might need a restart. Right, let me get started then, and then I'll get you guys free as soon as possible. Thank you for dialing in. And there have been, as I said earlier, a few apologies because everyone's on holiday, but I thought I'd leave this in anyway, just as it's always good to catch up. So I'll do a quick safety moment. The new funding rules, I finally had a chance to have a look at them. There's two reasons that I want to go through with them. One is because actually a lot of things haven't changed. And it's one of the myths I always keep hearing about is that the funding rules keep changing. A lot of them do, I agree. But actually, for some of them, they're still the same as they have been for years. I want to do as part of that, quick reflection on calculating off-the-job training hours. There's a couple of things that have come up from a few different people over the last few weeks, so I just wanted to go through that. The last session that I did was around NEETs. So there's something that I've put together that I've shared within something that I've started within West Yorkshire that I thought was worth sharing with everybody. There are things we can do to try and contribute. I know it was pretty horrific, the Milburn Report, but I'm sure there's stuff we can start contributing to, and it'd be interesting to see what other people's thoughts on there. And then if there's any questions at the end, we can go through those. So I always try to keep you guys entertained with different health and safety moments. Perfect. I thought Malcolm, I'm glad you've joined because I'm hoping you'll enjoy this. So I was on holiday for 2 weeks, and I was just mentioned, and I thought this would be of interest. So I went to Borneo and Singapore for 2 weeks, and when we stayed in this lodge within the rainforest in Borneo, there was this boat there, and they were explaining to us that it was David Attenborough went and did some filming, and he stayed in their lodge, and he was filming around the orangutans in the jungle. And because he's put his name on a sorry, Malcolm, can I mute you? Are you typing?
Oh,
Is that
sorry.
right?
Sorry, I was just telling someone I can't come to their meeting.
Good choice. So because David Attenborough had signed this petition to stop bridges being built over this river that goes straight through the centre of the rainforest, his one signature is now stopped what could actually cut out and destroy a significant part of that rainforest. If those bridges were built, the impact on the nature and the wildlife and that unique ecosystem would be immense. People's jobs, lives would be impacted, all from one person. So this was just some of the, I thought I'd just throw these in. I know these aren't engineering related, but I thought you'd enjoy them anyway. So these are some of the photos from some of the kind of wildlife that his one signature is protecting. So we were lucky enough to go on all these boat rides, saw macaques. Hopefully you can see that. Seeing an orangutan in the wild is something, if I'm honest, since I was a kid, is something I've wanted to do forever. And it was phenomenal. I never thought I'd be able to do it. And seeing elephants in the wild as well. But one person made a decision, one person's signature, one person's voice has managed to have a huge impact on the community, on the whole island, and on those animals and the whole environment, because he wanted to stand up for something. And I suppose I mentioned it briefly earlier, with around everything that's going on with the changes to apprenticeships, we can make a difference. So that's one of the reasons that I thought it was amazing what he's done. David Attenborough, I've always been a huge fan, but trying to stand up to make our voices heard around the changes that are happening and trying to be proactive, I still believe we can make a difference. If Caroline was here, the work we've been doing on the construction task force around assessment reform has completely changed from where we started. That we were able to keep that connection to that professional registration for the level 4 building services engineer. Right now, there's consultations going on for the degree apprenticeships, including civil engineering and the other engineering and construction disciplines. We need to give our voices, otherwise we'll have had our say and they could disappear. So I know it's tenuous. I know it's just me sharing a few holiday snaps, but I thought, you get the idea that actually we can make a difference between us. So if you see those opportunities to contribute to the degree apprenticeship course with Skills England, please do. And if you see the invites from Caroline as well, please get involved. Okay, so I'll try and get through this very quickly. I haven't gone through, I read through the new funding rules, as I'm sure others have already been through as well, but I just thought it'd be of use just to highlight a few of the things that I found out. So they're there. We're already onto version 3, even though they only came out a few months ago. So the link's there if you want it. But a lot of the things are still very much the same. So in order to access the funds, it's still the same. Apprentices still need time to actually complete. Some of this wording is identical to what's still been in there for the last however many years. So I suppose one of the reasons for sharing this is to show some of this hasn't changed. I thought this was quite interesting around the level 7 apprenticeships, 32.2 there. I didn't realise around, I thought all level 7 apprenticeships were getting defunded, but there's a note in here now around what you can be eligible for. So I know it was under 21s, but this piece around education, care and health and care through if you're provided by the local authority or in the care of the local authority, that a level 7 is still available. I didn't know that, so I thought that was quite interesting to be aware of. Still, and this is still the one that I think is the most important, still comes up regularly in discussions, an apprenticeship is a job with training. So again, just coming back to some of those degree apprenticeship consultations from this week, if we're moving to a scenario where an apprenticeship effectively just becomes a part-time qualification, I struggle to see how it aligns with that. An apprenticeship is a job with training. That is something that I worry about as an employer. And that those are the split of the responsibilities is making sure which part of those happens. So we've got the formal off-the-job training, but making sure we actually give the apprentices the opportunity to apply this in real life is still such a crucial thing that we as employers need to do. And just chatting with some apprentices, when they're preparing for their EPO, which I know is going to disappear with some of these future apprenticeships, regardless of that, to demonstrate competency, if we don't give them the opportunity to demonstrate and to build and to gain these experiences and skills as the employer, they're going to struggle. So we want competent people. Feel free anybody else to join in, but my understanding is we as employers, we want competent people, but we need to make sure we're giving them the opportunity to actually develop that competency and skills as well. Feel free if anybody wants to disagree or with that, or if anybody's has a different view on it. But our role as employers, I just reiterated again, it's still there. The apprentices can't do this on their own.
That's agreed, but there appears to be forces against that. That's my polite public opinion. It
is. I suppose I still stick to, with all the things that are changing, I'm still looking at what the ICE or the Engineering Council standards are as the structure. So I still feel like we've got to give them that experience. But yeah, you're right, Malcolm. There's lots of people against us.
And I'm dead interested as an industry how we are not beholden to the government's controls. We are an independent industry. How do we, if we can use apprenticeships to continue to move forward, or in spite of them, how do we maintain quality? We are definitely challenging that in our company at the moment.
Good.
If we think ING is good, do we care if it's in an apprenticeship or not? We'll still try to achieve ING.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Agreed. Thank you for that. So again, about contracts of employment are long enough to complete the apprenticeship. Again, this is something I haven't heard for a while, but it's good to see there. It's making sure that apprentices aren't just given a contract that's aligned with just the part-time qualification. It's to complete the whole apprenticeship. This is something I think 5-6 years ago, when I first really started looking into this, was a problem, which I was quite surprised at. But this was around, what else did I put on here? That was it. So I'd be interested in this. So I've been working on some tenders recently where social value is a big metric on that. And in there, clients are asking for, you get a certain score for however many weeks of an apprenticeship or apprentice experience that you provide. So maybe Gareth or Aaron, you'd be able to add to this. I don't quite understand how can we verify that an apprentice has a contract long enough to complete an apprenticeship if they've just been employed because a contract because they said they're going to do I don't know, 20, 40 weeks, whatever it is, to employ an apprentice, because that's what the metric was for a social value metric for a tender. I don't know if that's ever come up, Gareth or Aaron, or you.
I think it's more for employers to prove more than anything. It's part of their submission. I mean, in terms of our process, we don't necessarily insist in seeing employment contracts, but we ask for wordings to be agreed to say this apprentice that you're putting forward to Salford has an employment contract. So a declaration, sorry, that's the right word, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would always think it's for the employer to prove that. And where we kind of see that a bit more is, or in fact I hear more of, is at the lower levels. So for example, we do some work as part of Bill Salford, and we work with Salford City College on that. And so within the TOMs, when they're putting in those requests, they will have quite a number of different apprenticeship people that they say are coming onto this project or coming onto this, whatever it might be. And it tends to be the lower level ones because the durations are shorter. I think with the degree apprenticeships, sometimes the projects they're putting in will actually go, well, so they'll be completely quicker than the apprenticeship. Not in all cases, but in some cases. And I know working with some of those smaller contractors, they feel quite a lot of pressure around that. And like you say, recording it's all on the employer.
Malcolm, do you want to add to that? Thanks.
I read this the other way around, and I've got an interesting. We won't go into the details today, but is the provider has to ensure the contract's long enough, i.e., it's not too short. So is the provider trying to get somebody to their EPA within 4 years rather than 5.5? Is there sufficient time to grow, as opposed to, is there a project long enough to sit on? I was reading this the other way around.
So when I think with the first years that I saw this in here, that was more my thought around it. But because I've been working on these tenders recently, I suppose this is almost more of a challenge to our clients. So, and it's something I'll come on at the end when I look at the needs bit. TOMs, you've mentioned it there, and I can't stand that. I don't think it correctly incentivizes or aligns with local skills improvement plans. I don't think it actually encourages skills. I think I did an assessment and compared there was a tender that came out a couple of years ago compared to the metrics they were proposing, things like Tom's, versus a local skills improvement plan. Tom's, if you did everything on there, I think it covered out 5%, maybe less than that, of what was in the local skills improvement plan. So actually, we've got these metrics for social value that I don't think are supporting skills in the local regions, which I think is a real shame. I think it doesn't support the Milburn Report. It's not encouraging young people into work. And then when I looked at this, I was actually thinking, well, how can as a client you encourage people to take apprentices on for a number of weeks? Because surely in order to be an apprentice, they have to have a contract to complete the apprenticeship. So why aren't clients, for example, saying you should take on an apprentice to complete an apprenticeship as opposed to just a number of weeks?
Yeah,
and
agreed.
That supports you guys as well, doesn't it, as providers? And it supports the young people, that we're not just giving them, say, a quarter or a half of an apprenticeship and then abandoning them. Actually, the commitment is, we're going to give you a full qualification. We will support you through to the end of that apprenticeship. And that's what I thought would be more valuable.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, judging from people in the room, and I'm thinking of a particular event, and somebody from Salford City Council was talking about Tom's. There was a similar kind of, the audience were similar to yourself. Oh, Tom's. But I think particularly this word in here is more around the employment contract type as well, isn't it? So if it's a fixed term contract, it must extend beyond the apprenticeship end date to allow them to finish on time, as opposed to a project they're working on. And obviously, if they want a permanent contract, then that doesn't matter, does it? Because that will just go on as long as the apprenticeship is required, provided there's still employment.
Agreed. Gareth, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just sort of, I mean, I was reading this from maybe a private provider's perspective, and the rules are in place to kind of make them not toe the line, but keep them in check a little bit. Because if they're setting their contracts up within their company, they can do what they want, like marking their own homework. And I think this is in place to kind of look. We're sort of assuming that it's like a college or university is the provider, but I think there's a different perspective that's important with this when reading this.
It's a good point. There is I have been in discussions with supporting somebody, an apprentice and their business and their line manager for the last year, for somebody who is using a private provider. You're right, and they are very much that one instance. They are stuck in their way of, this is how we do things, it will last this long. It's not focused on the individual, and that's what I sometimes struggle with. I don't think some of these are focused on the individual, the learner, how long they may take. For example, if there's any SEND or neuro divergence that needs to be considered, anything like that, doesn't matter. We deliver to a 12-month, 18-month program. You will fit in that box. That's sometimes the bit that I don't like. I think the individual, we should support them to get through to a successful completion. If they need a bit longer, so be it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, it's a good chat about that. I thought it was just an interesting one, but okay, thank you for that. Right, I'll keep cracking on. So ILRs, always a conversation, but breaking learning, that's something that I've seen used a lot more recently, and so I think understand the challenges, especially that providers are put under for the ILRs. We've discussed it on here before. It doesn't do what the funding rules say isn't what you guys necessarily experience. So but the ILR rules don't seem to have changed. Making sure that there's apprenticeship agreements in place. Again, start of the year, this is always something that comes up. This is something that people get chased on. But I just thought it was worth noting. And there was I can't remember if it's this one or the next one. So next slide, there's reference to a 12-week period, I think it is. So there's a grace period at the start, but you need to get it signed. Minimum. I'm sure
I think that's a training plan, that, Colin.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, the apprenticeship agreement must be in place before the apprenticeship starts. So as a training plan, because it could be fluid, it could have some changes within it. It would be 12 weeks. But I mean, for example, with ourselves, we always try to get them signed as soon as possible, just so we're compliant.
Great, thank you for that. So minimum off-the-job training. So this is always, again, this is the same as we've discussed in previous years. Off-the-job training isn't just delivered by providers, it's by us as employers as well. So it's across us all. So that hasn't changed. Meets the following, and it must align with demonstrating knowledge, skills and behaviours. So again, it isn't changing. This was something I think a few years, 4 years ago, something like that. There was a certain provider that issued a letter saying that off-the-job training had changed to all its apprentices. It hadn't. It was somebody within their organisation that decided they didn't want to change the definition. So off-the-job training I haven't seen the changes to the list, and it's here. What is included, still there. What's not included, still there. It's still the same as it's been for years. So I don't think that list has really changed for a long, long time, which is good. But it's just to let everyone know that hasn't really changed again. And still, so revision, that was at one point they tried to take out, wasn't it, from off-the-job training. So that's still there. And time to do some assignments is still there as well. Timeframes to deliver training, so that's still there. Delivering off-the-job training, that's still there. Must agree with employer. So I think this was a reflection that I can't remember if I gave last year or not, but I think when I first had some of my training plans signed up, I didn't really properly understand necessarily what we were signing up to, what I was signing up to. So I think now having more involvement as more informed employers is definitely still important to make sure we contribute to that training plan. I'm sure we discussed that on the previous sessions, but nothing has changed on that. So that's still there. The principles I thought was quite interesting, actually. So this is the principles of off-the-job training. So that bottom one, apprentices on maternity, adoption or shared parental leave may use their keep in touch time to continue their apprenticeship training or endpoint assessment during their period of leave. So this is something that did come up this year. I've had one experience of this where somebody came to ask me for some advice on this, because I think when it talks about breaking learning, you can go on maternity leave for breaking learning, but then the provider, interestingly, Garrett's point, it was actually a private provider, came back to them and said, you have to come back 10 days early from your maternity leave in order to start your apprenticeship, which to me didn't make sense, because surely that means that there's an impact there, but they're on maternity leave. Why do they have to shorten it for 10 days? So that's why I started looking into this. These keep in touch days I found quite interesting, but I don't know if anybody's got any experience of that, of how they apply. Do you still put the apprentice on a break in learning if they go on maternity leave and use these keep in touch days? Has anybody got any experience of this?
We have. We've not really been able to for it to work, because a lot of the time our trimesters are 13 weeks, so that would be beyond anyway. So either they would miss the first 2 weeks and do the assessments at the end and just about squeeze it in that trimester, or not be able to at all. So obviously sometimes it's not great for the apprentice because it adds on extra time, but what we would normally recommend is if you're breaking in, for example, July, you return in July the following year, if that's possible, to then resume from September. I know smaller providers find it a bit easier because their delivery is a bit more fluid and can be done in kind of a block delivery and things like that. It works a bit better, but for ours, it doesn't tend to work that well.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Malcolm?
Yeah, I'd echo what Aaron said, because we've got somebody who needs to take a break in learning, not for maternity leave, but for another reason. And it's easy for us as an employer to say, if you need 3 months, take 3 months. But the academic courses don't work on that 3 monthly cycle; they work on an annual cycle. It raises chaos sometimes for smaller ones. We've only got 6 people on the course, if you like. Then suddenly you're taking one of the people out. So it's a negotiation that we need to find our ways around these things. And maybe that's why somebody was asked to return 10 days early, was to get into an academic cycle that is beyond the control of the employer, if you like. So yeah, I think flexibility is needed. How we do that with employment law can be awkward. But,
I mean, maybe it was there before the principles of off-the-job training, but I hadn't spotted it. I thought it was good to have it in there.
Yeah.
Okay, Aaron.
Just on the flip side of that, I remembered a case where there was a very determined lady who was going to go on maternity. Let me get this right. she was going to stop from work, I think it was like mid-May, because she was due to give birth like a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
And so what we did is, whilst we were talking about implementing the break, we were a bit more flexible in terms of allowing her to continue if she wanted to. And she actually managed to finish the dissertation and hand it all in. And then 2 days later, she gave birth. So
Amazing.
that was, it worked for her. But yeah, otherwise the normal delivery of it sometimes doesn't work quite well. But yeah, that would have been classed as, well, in fact, that wasn't, was it taken as a kit day? No, maybe I'm getting this mixed up. So no, she started it, sorry, at the start of May. But then, yeah, we allowed the kit days, sorry, and to be able to do the final assessments and submissions. And yeah, it worked out well for her.
Brilliant. It's something I hadn't, until I got a question from this other company that just messaged me randomly. I hadn't even thought of it. So again, it was just useful to know about that, and I hadn't even thought about how kit days fitted in. So it's there though, which is good. Oh yeah, this was to do with planned off the job training and 12 weeks within completing of the apprenticeship. So this is something that I wasn't aware of, and it's probably been there for a long time, that needs signing within 12 weeks of the apprentice completing their apprenticeship. Contributing to the training plan, I think this again we've mentioned before about making sure employers can contribute it, and as I said, I think I should have contributed more. I think on reflection, I know a lot more now than I did 5-6 years ago when I first started getting involved with these. So that's still there. Progress reviews still should be undertaken every 3 calendar months. I think we originally started out at 12 weeks, so the 3 calendar months gives a bit more flexibility, but it's still there. What we should be doing at the progress reviews, that hasn't changed. Eligible costs, so the cost of one resit still included for a mandatory qualification in the funding, still there, so that's good. Still need to make sure in consultation with the employer that the apprentice is ready to sit endpoint assessment, so it's still a piece that needs doing, and still the engagement of the EPAO at least 6 months before the apprentice reaches gateway. So nothing has changed there again, that's all still there. Still need the apprentice to have satisfied gateway requirements. Nothing has changed there. And as I always say every year, my favourite one is the protection for the apprentices is still there. They cannot be asked to contribute financially to eligible costs of training or assessment. And having heard direct from apprentices that have been threatened with this on several occasions, you must stay. If you leave, you will have to pay back the fees for your course. This still needs to be in there. That shouldn't be happening to some of the youngest people in our industry. It's not fair. So this was one of the new, so there was a couple of bits that are vaguely new, and again, unless I'd missed them previously. So around moving to a new standard. So there was, when an apprentice wishes to move to a new standard, the provider must agree. Where is it? We still have the need to fully explain the terms and demands of the requirement. I thought there was now a provider-led opportunity. Maybe I've missed that one out. I'm sure there's now a provider. So that previously it was only in the rules, it only referred to apprentices the learner wishing to move. I thought there was now an option in here for where there was a provider wanting. They still have to get the agreement with the apprentice and the employer, but I think there is an option now to be driven by the provider. So have a look. ILRs must still accurately reflect what's happened, so that hasn't changed. This is it. So where the assessment, this is definitely a new piece. So everything before this, I think, is kind of there or thereabouts. So this is now talking where the new assessment plan for the standard has been revised. So I don't remember this being in previous ones, and I think this is a big part of some of the changes from last year. So the provider, in consultation with the employer, must ensure the apprentice is prepared and understands the apprenticeship assessment process. I think with all the changes that's going on, it's tough enough anyway, but where we're looking to either start or move on to it, we've got to understand what that assessment process is, which I think is difficult because I'm not even sure everybody's managed to think about that full end assessment yet. The provider must engage with the assessment organisation at the start and the assessment where, in order to, if there's assessment occur throughout the duration of the apprenticeship. So as opposed to having that the EPAO engaged no later than 6 months before the EPA. Now, because assessment can happen throughout the duration, we're looking at the assessment organisation being engaged at the start. So where, especially if we're looking at professional recognition, if it's ICE, IHE, whoever it is, CIHT, whatever the organisation is, that now is right at the front where there can be assessment throughout the apprenticeship. For me, that was a noticeable change. I just wanted to highlight that. So there is this section in there now with all these potential assessment changes. And on one of the, I dialed into one of the Skills England degree apprenticeship consultation calls yesterday, and there was a lady on there from a university that said she was trying to understand when some of these new changes are coming in. Her concerns, which I'm guessing Gareth and Erin, you might be able to reflect, was that, hang on a sec, am I going to be asked to validate and come up with a brand new course 12 months after I've just done the new integrated civil engineering degree apprenticeship? Have I now got to do create another course 12 months later? And it seemed, both from her perspective, the work and the input from the university was going to be massive to do it again so quickly. But also she was thinking about the chaos and carnage from the learner's perspective about potentially having to be on 3 different standards throughout their apprenticeship. Malcolm?
You've assumed, or correct me if I'm wrong, that the endpoint assessment might be an engineering organisation, but can't it be a university?
It can. Absolutely.
And in the majority of cases, is it not going to be the universities?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. But that would now need, if whoever it is, that now needs to be determined at the start, because for that potential to do assessments as they go on, which is something to consider. So yeah, you're right. It's the universities who are the AO, but then they may subcontract to others. Agreed. I suppose the point around being prepared, I don't know, Gareth, how long it took you to put together your integrated civil engineering apprenticeship proposal, and if now there's going to be a change to that again, I mean, is that a big concern to you? Is it a worry? Is it a doddle?
No, it was a bit tight. The time frames posed us challenges. I think because we are in a state of flux, it's the culture at the minute in apprenticeships. I think our view is just to take a level-headed approach. We'll keep the non-integrated rolling for as much as we can, and then hopefully the changes will settle down a little bit, and we can implement them in a level way.
Good. It was the bit around making sure everyone understands the assessment process, but then actually, has that process even been developed yet? And then giving people time to get everything ready. So it was good. This was one of the new sections. I think the next one in there as well, around the assessment process for integrated standards. I think this was new as well. Covered. So that these sections that you're getting nearer sort of the clauses in the 300s. These were I think this was the first part. Everything else seemed to be pretty much the same as is. And then you're onto the glossary, which is still the same definition of apprenticeship, still the same definition for completion payments, final days. I always find the glossary is very helpful. So the reason for putting that in, as I say, is just to show the new rules are here. I don't think there's a huge amount of change apart from those now with the assessment reform, bringing those extra pieces in. So something that's come up a few times with a few different organizations from several different providers, so I thought I would just bring this in, is around calculating off the job training. So we've now got the minimums that are stated for the new standards. We've got calculation on some of the old training plans for how that was done, and then actually what is it we calculate. So I think for the I'm sure Mike, you'll correct me, or Malcolm, you guys are pretty good with numbers. Is it for the new civil engineering degree apprenticeship? It's a minimum of something like 1,200 off the job training hours. Is the number that's now stated in the table? It's something of that magnitude, isn't it? So I thought I'd use that as the baseline and comparison. If you looked at how, and these are the rules from 23-24, how that was calculated, based on a typical 60-month duration, which is what Skills England uses as a typical duration for the practical period, that would come out at either, and to be honest, the top left-hand corner is the number I always had in my head. I had always, when I think I started out this, I had an idea it was roughly about 1700-ish hours for that. But I'd forgotten that when you looked in the latest set of rules, it was actually based on a 30-hour week. So when you actually do the calculation based on that, that would drop down to just under 1400. And now if you look at what the minimum requirement is for the standard, I'm guessing, Malcolm, you're having a look now. I reckon it's...
I just put it into the chat. It's 1205 hours.
There you go. So I thought that was quite interesting, actually, is that just to do that comparison across the few years, trying to see how it works, is that 1200. It's a minimum. It is only based on a 30-hour working week. So that's not giving us an excuse to get out of doing less. You know, I wouldn't want to be giving less opportunity for learning and training to my apprentices. But I did the exercise and I just thought it was worth sharing in case that was of use to anyone. But yeah, I found that interesting. Malcolm?
I am the voice of depression on this meeting today because I apologise. I think the 1200 is coming from a slow but sure lowering of the standard into an academic qualification that is completed over 4 years and assessed by the organisation that provides the academics and the employer, which you are doing a valiant attempt to show we are still in this process, is slowly but surely sinking to the bottom of the glossary and we will fall off the document at some point. Sorry.
It's a bit of a Debbie Downer approach to that, Malcolm. I've got to be honest. I think also one of the reasons for the civil engineering one reducement is actually because the EPA now is a module, and so that module takes place outside of the practical period. So whatever hours you attributed to that as off the job is now moved over. It happens outside past practical. That would be my view, but I've not really looked at a lot of the other programs where that's occurred. But for me, that makes logical sense because a 40 credit module, EPA module, we'd attribute, at least 300 hours to. So that's going to drop from somewhere.
As I say, I found it interesting. I thought now wasn't necessarily the time for a debate on around that, but yes, it is absolutely a big part of it. Go on, Mike.
Yeah, obviously I've got lots of apprentices I'm working with that under Malcolm's regime may see me not working with them because they're not going to be doing IEng perhaps, but I see a lot of them really preloading. So in the first year, if you draw a graph, 5 years, number of hours per year, it's like any sort of S-curve. Everything they do in the first year can almost be off-the-job learning because the first time they do CAD, the first time they do something. Is there I've never seen any rule against having a much higher first year and then tailing off as they become useful employees in year 3, 4, and 5.
My understanding, there isn't. So that whichever one of these that you look at, even in these rules, this is the minimum number over the practical period, over the duration.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no straight line, curve line. We're always trying to get them to a competent person that's demonstrated the KSBs. The only minimum that I understand is that they have to record something every calendar month.
Yeah,
yes,
but that's an easy, go and have a meeting with your boss, go and have a presumption meeting, go and sit in on a drainage design meeting once per month. That's something, but you preload in the first 6 months particularly, but the first year significantly, and that gives you a lot of cover for the rest, because that's things that I'm not saying they're cheating the system, that's what they do. They do health and safety, 3 days, go and have a discussion because you've got no experience.
I think the problem's not achieving the number. It's, again, please cut me off and keep me out of the meeting when ready. I think the problem is that some of the universities take all those hours. And there's one in particular that takes the 12 months and pushes it into 6 because the way they structure their training, and you try and do 400 hours a year in 6 months, and then in addition try and do your 4 days a week work. It's complex for the apprentices to breathe. 100% Mike, half the time at work they're learning. They're also learning at least 1 day a week at university. It's not the quantity that I see as the problem at all. I see there's almost too many hours to learn, and the apprentices are getting crushed in between it.
How do you mean? Just expand on that, would you, Malcolm? How do you mean too many hours to learn? What do you mean by that?
Well, 20% off the job, dominated by academic learning. So you go to uni and get educated in a classroom is part of your off-the-job learning, isn't it? Any homework you get given could be done during your working day, and if it was, could count as learning, but you will probably be doing homework outside of those hours as well. And so it doesn't count as off-the-job learning, if you like, officially, because you did it on a Saturday. There's also, while you're at work, as Mike's touched on, half the time in your first or second year, you're probably learning. So to hit these off-the-job hours is easy. I would say trying to record half of what you learn, you should be able to hit the minimum. But when I have meetings with universities, they tell me that they've calculated the hours required to study their course are at least equal to the off-the-job learning, and there doesn't seem to be any space for the employer to provide that learning opportunity in those calculations.
So I suppose I didn't want to share these just as a focus on the number, because I want to get my apprentice to pass and to be occupationally competent and to pass their endpoint assessment. And all of us, so us as the employers, the providers and the learner, all sign the tripartite agreement, or the training plan, what it's called now, at the start, to say we are all aimed toward the same goal. So I was chatting to one of my apprentices actually, and he struggles, and he has to be chased to do this, to record it sometimes. But actually, heading towards EPA, he pushed himself to get into a position. He's been doing a role on site for 2 years now as an apprentice. He has got fantastic experience. He is actually becoming occupationally competent. He's gaining all those knowledge, skills and behaviours. I have zero doubt that when he comes to sit his endpoint assessment, he's going to pass, because he's on a really good learning trajectory. And you've got to have off-the-job training now as to, I think it does, again, protect this principle of making sure the apprentices are learning. I know of people who have been spent either 5 years sat as a CAD engineer and learned nothing, and then not been able to sit there and pass their EPA.
Those days are disappearing, I think, but yeah.
Well, I hope they are, but I'm not 100% convinced they are. Within the last 2 years, I've definitely had people from businesses call me through third-party contacts to say I've been sat here for 6 months doing nothing. Yeah, that's just a fact.
But the flip side is I've got a university at the moment, who will remain nameless, because I don't think they're the only one, telling me that when we sign our apprentice up, they will get the apprentice to the right stage. They've calculated the minimum off-the-job learning. They will provide it. They will achieve this in 4 years' time. They will be ready for their EPA. And it's like, well, one, can you have a negotiation with us, please? Because we are training the engineer as well 80% of the time. And your course is a part of that, not the only piece in that. And the response that came back was, there's not enough time to reach an agreement starting September or not.
That's the really disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't think it's only one uni, and I think we need to challenge ourselves how do we navigate this? There's got to be a solution, and I understand where the universities are coming from. I'm not against them.
I actually had that six years ago with one of my apprentices, and I need to give full credit to the lady who I phoned up and spoke to their team, and she said the main things are we couldn't. I can't remember which was it, but she found a way to help that apprentice start. And I think individuals, whether they're in employers or providers or whoever it is, that make that difference. That guy now completed his degree. He's now applied for his EPA, and she made a huge difference to his life by finding a way to help us, because that was the main stance initially for the university. And I can't remember the lady's name, but she was fantastic. She helped a young person get a degree, and I'm hoping by the end of this year he's going to have IEng. So it's those little decisions when we get stuck against that, if people decide to help or not.
Yeah, but 2 weeks we'll be all right, but roughly.
Yeah, it's a real shame that.
Do you have an indication, Colin, of how many universities are decoupling IEng by going in-house, not using the ICE?
All of them.
There's one or two that are not. I know.
Not one university has approached the ICE to be an endpoint assessor.
Hang on, go on, Aaron. Are you gonna bust that myth?
Well, whilst we are the assessment organisation, we are subcontracting to ICE, and so they will, on the new version, the 1.1, they will be ING. That's correct, isn't it, Gareth? I think you were going to, Mike was coming off there.
Yeah, that's what our intention is.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll tell you though, it's expensive.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, Richard's not here to have that discussion if you haven't already.
I'm not making comment where the money goes, but it doesn't all come down to the endpoint assessors, I tell you.
That's brilliant news, Aaron, by the way. That is brilliant. If you are doing that, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. That is refreshing to hear.
Whilst I wouldn't even say I've played a part in it, I've done some of the paperwork on it. Gareth has been the one that's instrumented that. It's been quite difficult, hasn't it, Gareth, in terms of negotiations, back and forth, and planning with ICE.
You're getting a clap off me, Gareth. You deserve that. Well done. That is really, really good. From an employer's perspective, it actually feels, I don't know how you feel, Malcolm, it actually feels heard for once.
I'm going to have to go for a walk and calm down. I didn't think anybody was listening to us, so thank you, Gareth. Buy you a cup of tea or something. That's amazing.
It does. I totally share that with you, Malcolm. It's nice to feel heard and you're not banging your head against a brick wall because it's so important. It really is. Thank you for that. Good. Right, I'm going to move on.
I think more than 90% won't. I think more than 90% will end up doing it themselves. Malcolm and I have talked offline on this many times that I think there will be a slightly reduced scope EPA done internally that won't meet the spec for ING, but that's another matter.
My one response to was it your comment, Malcolm, around the university saying that they can deliver everything? If they can become occupationally competent, how come the new standard says employers still have to verify behaviours?
The new current standard does, but there's a new one coming out next year.
So employers will still be required to verify behaviours. Right, okay, we'll leave on that point. So we'll move on. Okay, so this is I'm conscious of time, I want to get you all right. So last time I went through the Milburn Report, and it's been bothering me that every session I've been to quite a few, whether it's conferences or various different things around it, and I was chatting to somebody who also shared that lots of people talk about it and say, this is terrible, somebody needs to do something, but we weren't getting any proposals of what we could do. And I know that the second part of Milburn's report is due later this year with actual actions. So personally, I believe that we can get on with some of these actions. So I just wanted to share this. It's open to discussion, but I think we can get on with doing some positives. So I personally believe, and this is very much me personal, not linked to any organisation, anything else, so shoot me down, not a problem. First of all, I think there's 4 main areas that we need to work on. One, I think support for young people. I think second is if we focus on the applications black hole, I think we can make a real dent in that. Thirdly, providers. Fourthly, employers. And for each of these, there's 3 main areas, I think. So, for example, there's the stereotypes that were in that Milburn report around young people, things like they're lazy. How difficult is it for us, any of us, to actually stand up, whether it's at any meeting, and say that is not true? How difficult is it for us? It costs nothing to be in any conference, any meeting, any health and safety moment, wherever it is, to stand up for them and say, actually, that's not what I see. That's not what I experience. Give them some support. It costs nothing. So I think these are things that we can get on with to support young people and try and make a positive difference now. We don't need to wait for Milburn's report. We can get on with this. Being conscious of the impact on the mental strain on young people, we can do that now. Just how we treat them, how we. Then again, it comes back to that laziness. They're not trying to avoid this. Actually, they've got a lot of struggles going on. That report identified the crossover of all the impacts, even if it was from COVID. The piece around loneliness, I hadn't even considered that as a challenge. I hadn't even thought about loneliness and the impact that must have. If any of us thought about what it was like when we were 17, 18, 16, and if we'd have been in that position of I can't remember what the statistic was, but around how many people don't have a best friend, they're lonely. That's got to be harsh on them. We can do whatever it is to at least appreciate and understand and give them a hand with that. Gavin? You're on mute, Gavin. Still can't hear you, Gavin. Just need to unmute. I tell you what, I'll come back to you when your Teams stops playing up. Keep your hand up. Just come off mute as soon as you can. And practical barriers as well. So when it comes to offering placements or work experience, oh, you're off. Go for it, Gavin.
I can hear you now. Yeah, appreciated your point about Borneo. Still on my bucket list,
Thanks.
and that, but like a lot of us, we're still hanging in there with your orangutans, and so
Thanks.
some apprentices are as well, You say, currently doing this psychology survey on young people and families, and a lot of the young people are bearing the burden as well as families are.
Yeah.
Relative to the Milburn Report, and as you say, it's quite damning. How do you transition young people into the world of work, keep them consistently in an apprenticeship when they've got issues both in the socioeconomic issues, and a lot of apprentices are bailing out of apprenticeships for that reason, and because the benefits that are paying more than they would in an apprenticeship or to start an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. So hopefully those changes will happen relatively soon, with the current government looking to implement that change. So there are incentives for apprentices to start apprentices and continue through the apprenticeships. Unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of apprentices bail out of apprenticeships for that reason. And just on the term of the SCND stuff, which I have a handhold on, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, Gavin Hool. DM me if you'd like to know more about that. I'm happy to help employers. I'm also an endpoint assessor for mechanical engineering. So if anybody out there is looking for support with mechanical engineering apprentices, do reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you,
Gavin.
Gavin.
Just a plug there. Yeah. No worries. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So the second area is applications black hole. So there's three areas that I think we can do. So one, actually, young people being able to access and know where to go for to apply for opportunities. I've got I've updated my one-page skills pathways, and actually, if you think about it, first of all, if not everybody has access to a laptop, computer, so first of all, if they can't actually apply for a job, well, they can't continue down that pathway. They stop at number one. If they do apply for apprenticeships, quite often the individual still has to find their own employer. So I don't know. I did something recently in West Yorkshire and looked at all the colleges and universities and went to all their websites. And I'd say the minority by far actually offered, when they offered an apprenticeship, they offered links to where you could find an employer. The majority by far offered an apprenticeship with a caveat, you've got to go and find your own employer. So if you can't find that, and if a young person doesn't have, I think it was the Milburn Report that said a lot of jobs came out of somebody knows somebody in the family, don't they? So that somebody knows somebody, they can follow through. If they don't have those connections, which are less and less now, how do they continue that opportunity? And the accessibility, how do you even see what's available in your region? So Leeds College of Building over here in West Yorkshire, they're one of the construction technology colleges. I've spoke to them about, is there something that they could host for the region, not just for them, but for the region, just so young people could come to one place to find out what opportunities are there, what pathways to actually take to career paths going forward, because it's spread over so many different locations. Could we do that? That's something they're looking to try and do. And for employers, feedback. This was one of the ones that we highlighted last month around the lack of feedback was quoted in Milburn's report. Regardless of the number of applications we get, somebody or something, if it's AI, has to assess those. There has to be a decision made. How difficult is it, if that decision has already been made, just to give that feedback to young people? That was one of those key points, isn't it? They say they're sat there applying for jobs every single day, and one of the important things is they don't get feedback. They don't know where they need to improve or why they haven't progressed. We could do that. I don't know how many applications, like we've got various different employers on here. I don't know how many applications you get or how much feedback you give, but that was one thing that was highlighted in that report. They just want some feedback. We can make that difference. Somebody has to make a decision on why somebody's not going to progress. Why can't we give them that feedback? So providers, this links partly into the local skills improvement plan as well. So funding, I think some of the rates for the on the standards haven't been updated since 2018. I don't know who else would be still going 8 years later if you haven't had any pay rises for 8 years. Malcolm, I know you're committed to the course, so you'd probably be all right. But it is a huge impact though, isn't it? Is it something like basically on inflation only, it's 25 to 30% costs have increased in that period, but the funding standards and the rates used to build up the funding standards haven't. Pipeline visibility, you know, it's great that we have all these. The government will announce we're going to do all these projects. Great, okay, well, we need some sort of certainty, but then from the provider's point of view, well, when am I actually going to get these young people coming into my university, college, and what kind of qualifications or courses are you actually going to want them to do? I don't, you know, with some of this, if we get short notice of when actually a construction project is going to start, well, what about the providers actually having the staff and the like the rooms, the buildings to actually deliver those courses? So there's something that the clients can do around that with a longer period of having that visibility of funding and what the pipeline of projects can look at. And I think it's the availability of staff was in a lot of the local skills improvement plans is actually getting the quality of staff is a challenge. So employers, very similar again. If we can have this, which is why I think clients are important, is if we have this better visibility of what projects are coming up, a better idea around pipeline, actually, does that mean we can maybe give more opportunities, more forward planning around work experience, around apprenticeships, around the number of opportunities we can offer? You know, if we can only see 2 years ahead, I'm not so sure necessarily we're going to be taking on more young people to give them opportunities compared to if we can see 5 or 10 years ahead. It's a balance, but I think there is something there, and support as well. So I think everybody here who's an employer works for a major business. SMEs are a huge part of this. They can now not afford to take on the amount of apprentices and work experience people they used to be able to. It's too expensive for them. That is something around funding that's specifically for SMEs. It's something that I'm trying to look at with, I have a plan. I'll update you when I know more. But, you know, is there support, for example, that we as larger businesses can offer to SMEs around how you manage young people in apprenticeships or work placements once they're in? There's lots of networks and forums that provide support to get you to employ somebody on day one. But how many support you as an SME, as a one-man band, as a small business to deal with all those ups and downs and things that happen once you've got a young person in business, in a work role? That support doesn't exist. That's where these kind of forums, I think we can offer support to. And the last one is collaboration, with us all actually trying to work together. So what happened at one of these events, which got a lot of criticism, was that two businesses just in one of these sections came together and said, we're going to solve this, we're going to do something together. That doesn't solve it. We've got to work across the lines, providers working with employers, working with clients, all of us working together with learners to actually figure out to get that full pathway visibility. So it was just a theory of mine. It's a proposal. There are some next steps that I'm working on around each of these, but I think we can get on with some of these now to start helping young people. Hopefully when Milburn releases his report, there's more actions, but I think there is more we can do. Certainly feedback, certainly correcting stereotypes, standing up for young people. We can do that right now. It costs us nothing, absolutely nothing. I know there's only a minute left. I don't know if anybody wanted to agree, disagree, put a big red X over it, say, Colin, you're an idiot. I don't mind. Or maybe want to consider for next time then. Gavin?
No, I agree with what you're saying, and what I'm seeing, you know, interviewing, speaking to families, they cannot be effective with what they don't understand, and they, you know, as with providers and employers, they're you know, they're all ducks in a row, and at the moment you're right in saying that there are no ducks in a row. Everybody's doing their own thing, and there's no coherence, and the responsibility of the government is to do that and to make sure that that happens. Where industry, for example, at the moment the average age of a welder in this country is 55. Why is that?
Wow.
So where is the government on on that? Where is the government looking at the attrition rates? Where is the retiring? But if those people retire and the average age is 55, who's going to train the next generation? So
Agreed.
seriously, while Milburn Report is banging on needs, or where is succession planning?
I agree. I'm
So I
conscious.
wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin.
For your,
I'm conscious of time. Apologies for cutting over you there, Gavin. Thank you all for dialing in. I'll share the recording afterwards. If anybody has got anything that they need any help with, please give me a shout separately. If anybody does ponder on any of that NEATS piece and wants to have a further discussion, give me a shout. It is something I think we can do more about. So yeah, it is something you'll be hearing more from me about. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Enjoy your weekend, and thank you for your contributions. It's really appreciated.
Cheers, all. Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks all out.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.